Welcome to another edition of On the Mic with Mike. I am Mike Jarvis, and today, or this time, my guest is Mr. Harvey Edgecombe. Welcome, Harvey.
Thank you very much, Mike. Pleasure to be here. Good to see you. Thank you very much for all the work you're doing.
Well, good to see you too, Harvey. Who is Harvey Edgecombe? Let me begin by saying we are speaking today about a very interesting series of articles that have come out pertaining to Montserrat specifically, the volcano more specifically, and even beyond that, the potential of what's coming out of the volcano in terms of mineral mining, critical minerals, and what that could mean for the economic development of Montserrat long term. Why am I speaking with Mr. Edgecombe about this? We know of Mr. Edgecombe, those who follow the stuff that I do on other sites would have noticed that some time ago, Mr. Edgecombe was featured in the British national television Sky News for his involvement in real estate as a real estate developer and being involved in the Airbnb sector.
Yes.
A major feature on that, and our very own Mr. Harvey Edgecombe of Montserrat doing great things in the UK and elsewhere. For the purposes of this particular conversation, which is about mining, Mr. Edgecombe is also involved in mining, and this is where I'm going to get him to tell us about how he got into mining industry and what he does in the mining industry.
Okay, so I got involved in mining for minerals for battery technology about 5 years ago. And I got involved because the investors that were setting up the company were based in Europe, and some of them were friends of mine, some of them were clients, and the company was, or the actual minerals themselves were located in Canada, in Quebec. So I grew up in Quebec, I grew up in Montreal, and so they asked for my advice in terms of actually how to structure the company. So I did that. That was in 2018, 2019. And then they offered me some shares in the company as, let's say, for example, payment for my work. So I can class myself as one of the founding shareholders to that company. And I stayed with them, and I've been continuously working with them since that time. And we have, since that time, we went public. So now we're listed and we're traded on the stock market in Toronto. That happened in last year, 2023. I was nominated by the shareholders to be on the board of directors of that company. I manage the communications on behalf of the company. And that is basically our background. But the company itself, what we do is we focus on battery minerals. But there's some other minerals on the land that we also have as well. We also have, we have some what you would call they like gold and stuff. We have some gold. So what do you call that? You call that precious metals. We have precious metals, but we also have primarily we have battery minerals. That's what our companies focus on.
In terms of the mining industry globally, let's put it this way: the world runs on minerals, mined minerals. That's why the continent of Africa is so important. That's why the mining industry in the United States is so important. Russia, Ukraine, all over the world. Cobalt, lithium, whatever mineral, it's there and it is put to an industrial purpose. And this is where the Montserrat quote-unquote connection comes into the picture. Because quite interestingly, there has been some talk about Montserrat and lithium and even geothermal, going back for quite a while now. There have been some reports done on it. But quite recently, there was this particular story that started circulating and gained a lot of traction, tremendous traction, particularly in the UK, but overseas as well. And when that happens, when the major, highly respected UK newspapers, The Guardian, The Times, The Independent, even the Metro, CTAM, when they all pick up on this story, and I have an idea of how editorial decisions are made, you know that there's something major going on here. And in the midst of that is Montserrat. before I get into some more detail about what these researchers are talking about, give us your perspective on how significant even this kind of exposure is for Montserrat to be mentioned in the middle of this type of publicity.
Okay, so for myself, I mean, obviously there's two perspectives, maybe three that I look at it from the perspective of a Montserratian. It is unbelievable, you know, from the perspective of somebody that works in the mining industry, it is also unbelievable. And from somebody who is, I would call myself a bit of like, pro the environment, it is also unbelievable. So on three levels, to me, it is everything is just it's absolutely unbelievable. And as you mentioned about seeing the traction in the news media, like there's obviously a lot of other people that are thinking that this is unbelievable as well. So yeah, that's how I feel.
And also taking into consideration the people who read these newspapers. Yes, they're general circulation, but particularly people involved in industry, the captains of industry, the lobbyists, the political leaders. These are the papers we know that they read. And if I'm not mistaken, I think there was something in the Financial Times as well pertaining to this. Yes. So let me just give an idea of what we're talking about pertaining to this particular news story. I'm quoting from The Guardian. I haven't read news in a while, so forgive me. Researchers in the United Kingdom are looking to a Caribbean volcano to provide answers about where metals vital for batteries and electric cars can be found and how power can be generated from its heat. I'll skip one paragraph and go on down a bit further. It says, researchers at the Oxford Martin Programme on Rethinking Natural Resources, bear that in mind, Rethinking Natural Resources, part of the University of Oxford, are looking at the volcano on the Caribbean island of Montserrat. I like to do these things with statements and then questions. Questions. Why are they looking at Montserrat? They are digging in the ground around the volcano to analyze the geofluids in the hope of creating a blueprint that can be applied to sites across the world. So, in a sense, Montserrat is being used as a lab for that purpose. Professor Jonathan Blundy from the program told the PA, that's the Press Association news agency, we are using Montserrat as an example, as a blueprint, and we'll understand more about what we can do in Montserrat, but also what we can do in other places. And then it goes on to state something that I find particularly interesting pertaining to this, where they're saying that what they're doing now, given that it is experimental, and that's where all of these things start, may take about another 3 or so years for them to finalize or complete their research. But in the meantime, industry is particularly concerned about this because these are people who are highly respected in academia and also highly respected as far as the mining industry is concerned. Another quote, Professor Pyle said that one day it might be possible to apply the findings of Montserrat to discover untapped resources even in the United Kingdom.
Yes.
So Montserrat is at the heart of this.
Yes.
How does Montserrat benefit from this?
Well, the obvious answer is that Montserrat benefits from this economically. I would sort of backtrack a little bit because from my understanding, in order to look at the mining, like how people actually mine minerals today, like how we dig minerals out of the ground. We go, we find a site, we do some geological work like what they have done. And then, we take drills and we drill on the, maybe we go down, I don't know, half a kilometer at a maximum to take and start extracting minerals from there. But it's on the surface. What they're talking about is going down maybe 2, 3, 4 kilometers into the crust of the earth, then, so to speak, where the volcanic magma is, and extracting minerals from there. So that's pretty much what it is. But the amount of minerals that they're talking about, I mean, I think I read one I actually read the actual report from what they're talking about, and I can't remember, but it was like it was a number with too many zeros on there. And they're saying like per kilometer, per square kilometer, the amount of copper that they found as one of the base metals that they were looking at was copper, and it's just like, well, we estimate number with a lot of zeros behind it in a square kilometer. And if you think of the size of the volcano or the volcanic area in Montserrat, and actually throughout the island, because in fairness, the magma is beneath the surface. Like I remember hearing about, I think it's called out in the north of the island, like those mountains over by Rendezvous, those are also volcanic mountains as well.
That's Silver Hills.
Silver Hills, exactly. So in Silver Hills, there's potential for more minerals there as well. I mean, there's a lot to take into consideration here.
Is it that one of the advantages that Montserrat has is that Montserrat itself and the volcano are so accessible compared to other volcanoes where they are like way out in the forest or it's just difficult to get to? But Montserrat, despite the other conversation about access, this aspect of Montserrat is very, very accessible.
Montserrat benefits because of its relationship with the United Kingdom, because it's considered to be politically stable. Montserrat also benefits because, well, at least for this research, I think, if I'm not mistaken, they used the wells that were already drilled for geothermal energy, so they didn't have to do too much. Like there was already an infrastructure there that they could have taken advantage of. So yeah, these are some of the positive things that Montserrat has going for it.
I'm taking another quote from the article. The researchers are 1 year into a 3-year project, and over the next 3 to 6 months will start to analyze the data that they have collected. So the possibilities look quite encouraging. I raised the question before, and I'm going to bring it around in another manner about how Montserrat benefits from this, how Montserrat capitalizes on this rather than just being the location. How does Montserrat take ownership or part ownership of what's going on here? Because clearly Montserrat on its own cannot fund this type of research. We don't have the expertise. Well, we do have expertise in terms of volcanologists locally, but the mining expertise, the industry that you are involved in, how does Montserrat get into this thing and take ownership of it?
Well, I think the key word in your question is ownership. And that is actually a simple concept, but within the context of let's say, for example, the mineral industry, it's not that simple. So where the wells are right now, that's somebody's land. Who owns that land? So the concept of ownership is actually critically important. Now, who owns the minerals beneath the land? That's another layer of ownership.
Might that be the Crown, the British realm?
Usually it is. But, I mean, in order to access that, you have to go on somebody's land. So, the concept of ownership, and then what role does the government play in that as well? The local government, the UK government being a, sovereign. These are things that sort of need to be ironed out. Probably if I was in a position of, leadership or authority on this matter, I would start thinking about this right now.
Shall we say you are in a position of influence?
We can say that. I don't know how much influence, but yeah, we can say that.
When we look at the mining industry globally, when we look at what's happening in Canada, when we look at Australia, the UK, the former coal mining, we know what's been happening with fracking, the debate surrounding that, the politics involved, the regulations involved, looking at the Far East, looking at Russia, looking at Ukraine, looking at Africa. In the Caribbean, looking at Trinidad and Tobago, looking at Jamaica, the bauxite industry, etc. These are significant contributors to the economies of all of these countries and these areas that we're talking about. But regulation is a key, and having agencies that advise the government or sit within the government and direct how these industries are regulated and how the country benefits. In terms of Montserrat, we're not even out of the starting gate on that yet, but even at this early stage, is it time for Montserrat to start thinking seriously about these sorts of things, and then what do we need to put in place?
Yeah, is the short answer. I would like to maybe expand a little bit on what you're talking about, because in fairness, I also see the United Kingdom as not having that together. The UK government doesn't have that. And you can compare the UK government, like this book here that I've brought with me today for you, is the Critical Mineral Strategy for the EU. The United States has a very detailed critical mineral strategy. Canada does as well. And obviously China and those places, they have whatever they're doing, they're doing, and it's very well developed. As a matter of fact, the critical minerals strategy, the strategic concepts have come out on the back of China actually dominating like literally 100% of that market globally. And all of a sudden, the United States has woken up to, hey, wait a minute, they control all the minerals. Now, why are the minerals important? Why are the minerals called critical? There's a couple of things to take into consideration. A, artificial intelligence. So the forecast for the amount of energy that is to be consumed through artificial intelligence is anywhere between 6 to 10 times the amount of energy that we consume today globally. Now, we also have the problem, of course, we have climate change. We have carbon emissions, which is which is why we're working to try to achieve net zero. But we're trying to achieve net zero at a time when there's an explosive demand for energy. And that's why Montserrat that's why it's such a big deal. So we have artificial intelligence, we have the defense industries, we talk about the car industries, and of course cars are big, but that is driven by consumers, whether consumers start to pick it up. We also have robotics. Amazon today, quote unquote, employs more robots than it does people. And that's where the world is heading. And all this is based on critical minerals.
So there's a significant global strategic significance to this in terms of intelligence, in terms of defense, and in terms of consumer items as well.
Yeah.
And somehow Montserrat finds itself in the middle of this conversation.
Yeah.
To take it one step further, so this research is happening at the moment. Indications are that what they are anticipating that they'll find at the end of their research, that about 50% of that is already established. Am I correct?
I think I would say even more than 50%. The question now you have to quantify. I mean, it's that you cannot necessarily do. You can't quantify the amount of the potential for how much minerals are there, because it would that's going to, it's a bit of a gold rush, in fairness, right now. Well, it will be a gold rush on that tiny little island that nobody pays much attention to. It will happen. There's another problem that we have as well, because for mining, how we use and the technology that we're using today is on the surface. Now we're talking about extracting minerals from magma or liquid. So you're extracting from geofluids, and the temperature in the geofluids are between 500 to maybe 1,000 degrees Celsius. You put a drill down there and the drill melts. So the technology to start doing that needs to be developed as well. But that will happen, because where there's a will, there's a way. And because the demand is so great, I suspect, I don't know, when they talk about they need another 2 to 3 years, I suspect what they're saying is that they need another two to 3 years to figure out how we're going to actually start extracting the minerals.
Does this bring us to the case, I mentioned it before, and I'm glad that you brought China into the picture, because China is the major global player in terms of critical minerals within China, but also accessing critical minerals elsewhere, particularly in many of the African countries. So how does Montserrat then position itself at this juncture to be on top of this possibility, which seems to be actually more than a possibility? There's every indication that something positive is going to come out of it. So in terms of the investment potential, the business development, and what it means for the island, for the society, how do we position ourselves? What do we need to put in place?
Well, okay, so a very significant component of the mining industry from a financial perspective these days is ESG, environment, sustainability and governance, ESG. So we have to have strong ESG credentials. We're going to have to rely on, I would say at this stage, and just answering your question off the cuff, we're going to have to start relying on partners. We're going to have to have strategic partnerships with global players. I think, let's say, for example, this was in Canada, as an example, hypothetically, and I'm in Canada and I have mineral rights, and I find some minerals, and I can go to the United States and I can get money from the United States government. The U.S. government will back up a project in Canada. Would the United States government back up a project with the European Union, back up a project in Montserrat? I don't have the answer to that question. I really don't know, but they're actually doing it right now. Like the United States government, yeah, you mentioned China in Africa, but the United States government is also trying to counter that by heavily investing in African mineral projects at this particular moment in time. So, I think you're absolutely correct. I mean, we don't have the capabilities ourselves as Montserratians to really do anything. But what we do have is we have the land. It's ours. It belongs to us.
Do we need a specialized unit, government department, government ministry, agency, something like, I don't know, Montserrat, a new version of a Montserrat Development Corporation or something along that line to be the local face and the representative face of Montserrat surrounding this new industry now that seems to be, I like using the word groundbreaking, because literally speaking, there's literal groundbreaking, but also in a metaphorical sense and in a real sense as well. It is groundbreaking.
Well, for me, I would just drop everything and focus on this like 100%. Nothing else matters. And if you don't do that today, you will, and if you don't take it seriously today, that's it. It's gone. It's over. It's finished. You lose control 100%. So you have to take it. For me, I would just drop everything and focus on this.
But in terms of losing control, I mean, Montserrat is still a British overseas territory. So wouldn't the British government be very much involved in this and might possibly in this type of situation, as you're mentioning it there, take control of it?
Well, here's the thing, right?
I don't mean that in a particularly negative way. I'm just saying that we lack the expertise, we lack the organization, but we have the product.
I think this is a good opportunity for Montserrat to assist the UK government, not the other way around.
So are you saying then that Montserrat could be a critical player in the evolution, to put it that way, of the UK's critical mineral strategy?
Correct. That's what I'm saying.
Is Montserrat ready for that? Is Montserrat thinking about that?
Well, I hope they start. I really do, honestly. I hope they start.
Because I haven't heard, and I don't know if anyone else has, but I haven't heard any, even a response or anything suggesting an involvement of Montserrat, meaning the government of Montserrat, in this ongoing process or having a voice in it. I'm just hearing, well, this is what the researchers have been doing. I mean, there are so many researchers who have researched so many things in Montserrat, and it's as if Montserrat is just this massive lab in terms of volcanology and post-volcanic eruption impact on the society, for everybody to come and do some research in Montserrat, do a thesis, get their credentials, get their PhDs, and you never hear anything from them again.
Yeah.
This one seems to be different.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is different on many levels, because even if you come in, you sort of can't leave. So like if you're coming in to, do research or do some studies, and you want to take advantage of it, you actually have to be there on the ground in order to take advantage of it.
I'm going to throw something into the mix that you probably might not have anticipated. But you probably would have heard about the situation with the Chagos Islands and the involvement, I think, the American government back in the World War II period. The people were relocated because they needed to use it for whatever practicing or preparatory work regarding the war. I think the same thing happened in Puerto Rico, in one of the islands on Puerto Rico, where they were using it for bomb practicing, and they had to get the people off, and it just became a big political thing. I think the situation with the Chagos Islands probably is just about to be resolved, but that's been going on for years. Sometimes you do hear people saying, "Oh, the British are trying to get everybody off Montserrat." Does that come into the mix the way you might look at it in this situation?
Why do they need to get everybody off the island in Montserrat when nobody in Montserrat seems to be really even? It's not even an issue. It's like, okay, so we're here. We have dirt on the ground. Why are we even stressed about it? Because it's not bothering us from doing this interview. Like, people will come in and do what they have to do, and you just sit there and you don't. What are you doing? Like, you don't even try to find out what it is that they're doing. You just sit there. You just sit back. So you're not even a thought, because you don't actually try to involve yourself with what's happening, and so they can just ignore you. They don't have to kick you out the island. I mean, they would probably want to, for example, I mean, if they were really sinister people, they would want to kick you off the island if you were kicking up some steam, but you're not doing anything. Like, that's how it feels to me.
Okay, but going forward, how significant is this for any present government or any future government of Montserrat to be 100% across, however this thing turns out? I mean, this sounds to me like it needs to be a policy, a significant, even a dominant policy matter.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. Obviously, the policies of the government has to be focused on the people, right? And the people's needs have to be taken advantage of. The health of the people, the education, these types of things. Montserrat has problems with just electricity, stuff like that. These types of things need to be prioritized, I believe. But you have to also give this equal weight as well, so that people can start taking you seriously.
You mentioned some of the challenges that Montserrat has at the moment. If this thing pans out the way it is anticipated now, that it more than may pan out, that it's highly likely to pan out, could this possibly solve, if not all, a lot of Montserrat's problems? There's the geothermal element, there's the lithium element, you mentioned the copper and whatever else they're likely to find in these geofluids. Montserrat potentially power itself in terms of electricity and power itself economically as a result of this, potentially.
Well, so let me throw a question back to you and ask you, what are the problems? What are the problems we're trying to solve?
Power, electricity supply, keeping the economy in a good way, the health service, but the health service requires a hospital to keep the hospital running. You require electricity. You need to have an export market for whatever you produce locally. If you're talking about producing materials locally, critical minerals, that's part of it. Am I on the same track with you?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I'm going to use the comparison to Guyana. So when Guyana signed its agreement with two private companies to drill oil, and Guyana is getting paid, like, I don't know, $100 million, or something, and it sounds like a lot. But the price of oil, the value of Guyanese oil today, they sold themselves short. But at the time when they signed that agreement, it sounds like, oh my God, this is so much money. But the reality is that if Guyana is getting paid 100 million, something like that, every year, or maybe less, I can't remember. I think they get a royalty as well. And the numbers sound big, but this company is probably extracting $100 million worth of petroleum or fossil fuels every month. So what you're getting in 10 years, they're getting like, they just pay you back and pay you back. That's what I'm saying is like, sometimes we sell ourselves too short, because we're not looking at the value. In fairness, I'm going to start with, I'll say $1 trillion for Montserrat in terms of the net value of the potential for minerals there. And I'm serious about that. I would say anywhere between $500 billion to $1 trillion over the period of, let's say, 50 to 100 years.
I think the average person in Montserrat will say, well, you're talking some Johnny Mac Brown figures there. But you're talking real figures. Because even in the numbers you quoted regarding Guyana, Guyana is still the fastest growing economy.
Yeah.
Not just in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
In the Americas.
Yes.
Globally as well. It's getting up there. One of the recent reports I've seen, it's actually getting up there. Yeah. So the possibilities for Montserrat could be tremendous from this. But I'm trying to summarize what you're saying is that we need to get across this. However it pans out, there's something going on, and Montserrat needs to be across it.
Yeah, I think to summarize what I'm trying to say is don't sell yourself short. I'm saying consider Montserrat today as like $1 trillion economy. That's like $1,000 billion, and start there, because I think that is the actual potential. And I'm basing that, as you said, on real numbers. Like, the market price for copper, they found copper, they found zinc, they found lithium, they found gold, and some of the, I think the platinum minerals as well in Montserrat. There's a lot there. There really is a lot. And these, and we need that, like the world needs it. And I mentioned to you earlier that, the demand just from artificial intelligence alone is estimated at anywhere between 6 to 10 times the amount of energy that we use on a global scale today.
The researchers have said that it'll take them about another 3 years to finalize their reports and, come up with something conclusive. It raises the question. Researchers do what they do, academics do what they do, people involved in exploratory mining and drilling, they do what they do. But that is an investment. Would you normally be making that type of investment to realize a result or not over a 3-year period? I mean, you're going to put all of that money without being certain what you're going to get at the end of a 3-year exploration?
Well, I mean, if it was a private company that was doing it, I would say, you would private companies, we do exploration, we lose money on exploration all the time. This is academic research, ironically, partnered with Russia. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Yes, Russia. Report is right here. It was a university from Moscow and Oxford. The two of them got together and went down to Montserrat. They went to other places as well. They went to Italy, they went to Indonesia, and they did their research together. This is academic research. This is very, 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 very valuable. I mean, a lot of valuable things start from just, inquisitive people looking and trying to figure stuff out from an academic standpoint. So, I mean, what is the motivation for them to do that? I mean, they're academics. They get published. They get rewarded. That type of stuff is what academics.
They get covered in the Times and the Independent and the Guardian and the Metro. But that's massive publicity. That goes back to the point that I raised earlier on, that these major UK national media outlets would give so much attention to this issue, and by extension, so much attention comes on Montserrat.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I have full respect for these professors and the work that they have done, because it is a contribution for all of humanity, in my view. Like, if they've actually figured out, you know ways to extract minerals, or they're looking as ways to extract minerals out of magma, that's a really cool thing.
Well, Mr. Edgecombe, we'll wait and see.
Yes.
Thank you very much for your time and putting such clarity on this issue, which at its very basic is a very complex issue, but, for bringing clarity to us. Thank you very much indeed.